They're just making sure that it's on. Good morning, everyone. I am Akanksha Navri. I cordially welcome you to today's session, Career Pathways in Psychology. When I chose psychology for my undergraduate degree, I remember it was just another decision that I made because I did not want to study physics, chemistry, biology, and all the letters that came with maths. In 3 years, I continued to be surprised, disturbed, and fascinated by all that the discipline has seen and all that it has to offer. But it was when I came to MAHE for masters, when in the first class of cognitive neuroscience, when I completely and irrevocably fell in love with the subject. Now, at the end of 2 years of MSc Applied Psychology with clinical psychology specialization, I plan to pursue further clinical training with the Masters in Clinical Psychology program. But this is just one path of many. I'd like to proudly inform you that my batchmates have chosen diverse career pathways for themselves after their graduation. Many have cleared the UGC NET exam and set themselves up for PhD programs, assistant professorship, and research associate positions. Others have secured placements in reputed organizations. 12 of my batchmates, including me, have also been teaching assistants for the past semester, which has been nothing less than an enriching journey. This whole conversation is directed to open what lies ahead in the field of psychology. It brings us to this event. We're gathered here because we have experts from across the field of psychology to guide us on the opportunities that lie ahead. On behalf of the Department of Liberal Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, I welcome Dr. Aditya Mohan Jadhav, Principal Officer, Acquisition and Marketing, Professor Arun Maya, Dean and Professor, Manipal College of Health Professions, Dr. Ashwini N.V., Founder Director, Mukta Foundation, Dr. Kalpana Purushottam, Trauma-Informed Psychotherapist, Dr. Vinish, Behavioral Scientist and Co-Founder, First Principal Labs, and Dr. Manavi Pathak, L&D Strategist. I also welcome Dr. Shilpa Kalyan, the Head of Department of Liberal Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences, and Dr. Arunima Dubey Upadhyay, Academic Coordinator, Psychology Program. During the interactions today, we aim to gain insight on career trajectories and the diverse opportunities, as well as address questions and concerns regarding recent regulatory developments in the field. I now invite Professor Arun Maya, who will be joining us online. Professor G. Arun Maya is the Dean and Professor in the Department of Physiotherapy at Manipal College of Health Professions. He is the President of the Undergraduate Allied and Healthcare Education Board, constituted by the Karnataka State Allied and Healthcare Professions Council, Government of Karnataka. With extensive experience in healthcare education and interdisciplinary practice, he has played a key role in advancing physiotherapy training and research in India. His academic background and leadership in health sciences education position him as an important voice in this discussion. We request Professor Arun Maya to present an overview of the pathways for an undergraduate and postgraduate student in psychology and decode the regulatory guidelines. Over to you, sir.
I'm just trying to share the slides. Very good morning to all of you. Am I audible to all of you? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Is the slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you all. A very good morning to all of you. Greetings from Manipal Academy of Higher Education to each and every one of you gathered there. First of all, I would like to compliment Professor Madhuvir Raghavan, Pro Vice Chancellor, Bengaluru campus, Dr. Aditya Mohan, Principal Officer, Students Acquisition of MAHE, Dr. Shilpa Kalyan, Head Psychology Program at Bengaluru campus, for organizing this important interactive session. As briefed by the Master of Ceremony, the psychology is gaining a significant importance in the not just restricting only in the healthcare. Psychology itself is a discipline, have broader opportunities like in health, in humanity, in liberal arts, in social science, in general education. Therefore, I just specifically have highlighted the various logos of the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations, where psychology is having an opportunities in the various SDG goals, in terms of 3, in terms of 4, in terms of 10, in terms of 9, and all these linked to the 70. So the current practice, opportunity, and the future career pathway for the psychology in the education and practice. Post-COVID, there is a significant changes in the healthcare dynamics as well as in the social approach of the individuals at the community level. If you, the slide is moving or is the slide is moving? Is it fine? Hello?
The slides are moving, we're fine.
Moving, no? Yes, good. So psychology as a career path. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior, aiming to understand why humans think, feel, and act the way they do. It's profoundly important for improving individuals' mental health, enhancing productivity, fostering better relationships, and understanding the societal dynamics. Therefore, if you look at I'm just highlighting only very few important the branches of the psychology and its career pathway and the scope in the various fields. Psychology have a wider application. It may be a clinical psychology, it may be a cognitive psychology, it may be developmental psychology, it may be social psychology, it may be industrial organization psychology, forensic psychology. Therefore, MAHE, being a comprehensive university focusing on the overall aspect of the higher education, offering the psychology in the various disciplines of the MAHE various campus. For example, in Manipal, our focus is mainly related to the healthcare. Whereas in Bengaluru and other campus, our focus of psychology education is mainly focusing on the liberal arts, social science, or the humanities. So why these psychology aspects is very, very important, and what all the various academic regulations and the professional regulations have been changed in the recent past, and what all as a prospective student or the student those who are pursuing the psychology and their parents needs to know. As I mentioned, the psychology have a wider application. Therefore, from the government of India, the psychology is offered under the various regulatory process. The first important thing is the University Grant Commission, the UGC approved psychology program. The UGC approved psychology program focusing on the outcome-based curriculum framework for the psychology undergraduate students. Most importantly, the nomenclature is called either BA or BSc psychology. And also, the BSc honors psychology have been introduced as per the learning outcome-based curriculum framework of the University Grant Commission. The next important key changes and the trend, because this many queries we are also getting from the students and the parents, is the psychology needs to be offered only with the regulatory framework. No. The psychology program can be offered under the different umbrella. The first important thing, as I highlighted, the UGC regulated program. The programs which are offered at Bengaluru or the other campus of MAHE is an UGC approved curriculum and the program. It's a 4 years undergraduate program, offers the honors or honors with the research. The opportunity of this is they can also enter into the PhD if they have a required CGPA as per the university guidelines. The next important career pathway, if somebody completes the undergraduate programs, what are the future opportunities? They can join MA Psychology, the Master of Arts in Psychology, which is very common in the humanities and the social science department. The next one is the MSc Psychology, Master of Science in Psychology, which is basically focusing on the clinical as well as the focus is on the research. The next is the MA and the MSc Applied Psychology, which is also predominantly in the area of the social science and the liberal arts. So what are the opportunities and how the student gets the further opportunity to continue their higher education if they complete these programs? Master's program, MA or the MSc Clinical Psychology or the MA or the MSc Clinical Counseling Psychology, there is a significant opportunity for them to work in the various sectors, not just restricting only in the health, other areas also. I will be highlighting that in the subsequent slide. And also, they have a multiple specialties like organization behavior, health psychology, and the child psychology. So this is an important slide. What is the opportunity? What is the career pathway? And how exactly students, if they complete the graduate programs and the postgraduate programs, can pursue their higher studies or pursue their career pathway in terms of jobs in the various areas. The Bachelor of Psychology, if someone completes with an undergraduate degree, there is a significant opportunity for them to work in the various non-health sectors. I repeat this point, psychology is not just restricting only to the health sector. It has a significant opportunity in the other non-health sectors also. Behavioral health counselor. This is one important aspect even in the child education. As per the World Health Organization, as the recommendations, as well as the World Health Organization guidelines, the institution offering the various, the primary, secondary, or the other level of education, psychology needs to be an integral part of the subject, and the psychologist also needs to be a part of the education. Because the behavioral science is an important aspect, needs to be integrated in the early educations of the student. When we say the behavioral science, the psychology and the sociology play an important role, where the graduate students, once they complete their BA psychology, they can work as a behavioral health counselor or behavioral health psychologist, or they can work as a school psychologist, or also they can work as a forensic psychologist, or also get an opportunity to work in the various community level research. There are many other opportunities, but these are the very well defined opportunities as per the WHO recommendations as well as the recent guidelines of the Government of India. How exactly they can strengthen their career path? If someone completes the Bachelor of Psychology, they can also pursue their higher studies. They can do the specializations in the organizational psychology. They can work in the forensic psychology. They can work in the human resource management. They can work as a corporate counselor. They can also consultant in law and enforcement agencies. They can also work as a forensic social worker, behavior profiling consultant, teaching faculty at the graduate and the postgraduate psychology program. In the corporate sectors or in the human resource management, even at the graduate level, there are opportunities. But now, the most of the MNCs and other companies or the industries are also looking for the qualified or the postgraduate level professionals, so that those who have completed the MSc Applied Psychology or the MA Applied Psychology gets an opportunity to pursue their higher studies in various disciplines. In addition, with the master's degree, there is an opportunity for them to continue their research pathway through the PhD program. So I will also highlight about, this is a most of the parents are confused whether every program needs to be registered under the National Commission. No. There is a very clear definitions and the guidelines from both National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professions as well as the Rehabilitation Council of India. They have defined the specific graduate and the postgraduate program, and they can register under that, but it is only that when someone is working in the mental health division, especially in the psychiatric divisions and dealing directly with the sensitive patient, both the commissions, like the National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professions and the Rehabilitation Council of India, have defined the specific graduate and the postgraduate program. Otherwise, as I mentioned in the beginning, psychology have a wider application, not just only in the health and disease, so that there are a lot of opportunities in the other sectors for the graduates and the postgraduate students to either work or strengthen their professional career. So this is the nomenclature of the program, Bachelor of Psychology. It's also 4 years, and there is an opportunity for them to do the master's degree with qualifications. Other one is Rehabilitation Council of India is offering the Bachelor of Clinical Psychology and also the Masters of Clinical Psychology. Exclusively, they mentioned that these people work in the mental health, diagnose and assess the mental health problem. So this is the very important changes developed in the country with respect to the psychology program. Therefore, the candidate who wants to join psychology programs with the nomenclature of PA, psychology or applied psychology, they have a multiple career pathway. So with this, I just conclude my presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Arun, for your insights in the clinical domain. I'm sure it will open doors for those looking for clinical as well as research training. May I request Dr. Arpita Jacob, Assistant Professor of Psychology, to moderate the question and answer session.
Now, am I audible? Yes. So now it's time for any questions, concerns that you might have, because there are a lot of regulatory changes that are going on, and with each change, I'm sure the questions you have are also increasing. We might not have answers to all the questions, but with whatever information we have, we welcome any questions or concerns that you have, specifically in relation to clinical psychology and research, but other questions are also welcome. You can raise your hand if you have a question and we'll get a mic to you.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. So my name is Vishnupriya. I'm currently doing my 3-year bachelor's program in psychology. I'm graduating this year. But the question that I had was, What would be the path to working as a psychologist in palliative care settings specifically?
The palliative care actually it's more of an counseling and other approaches as a psychologist you need to provide to the needy participants. Suppose if you are completing your graduate or the postgraduate programs in the MA or MSc psychology, you get an opportunity to work in the palliative center also. However, for all of us, including all of us, I repeat this point, palliative area is a very sensitive and a very high, very, I can call it as not the high risk area, but very important area where our approach needs to be very customized or the individual. For that, even after completions of the post-graduations in the psychology or in other disciplines, there is a specific short-term programs are there that we need to complete. Even for example, like a physiotherapist, those who are working in the palliative care, even if they have completed their masters in the discipline, it is important for them to undergo that particular short-term program which is available. It is already been started by MAHE, also other reputed organizations. So with that, you will be able to work in the palliative sector.
Good morning, sir. My name is Pratishtha, and I'm a second-year student at. I'm doing BA. I wanted to ask. So, after doing honors, it is said that you can do a PhD after that. So, what is the process for that? And is it like you don't have to do masters, or there's a direct entry? You can start writing exams for PhD directly. I just had a little confusion about that.
Yeah, as per, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I think some echoing is there. Can I just rejoin because I think because my camera is also. I'll just join. I'll reconnect.
So to just answer your question, after 4-year honors, you can directly enroll into a PhD. There are pathways to PhD program. So when there is a call for PhD with the requisite, CGPA, you can 7.5 is what qualifies you to get into honors. And you successfully complete your dissertation. So your dissertation and your course for 4th year would be equivalent to your coursework. And then you would get an admission into PhD, provided you fulfill all the requisites. Thank you. Dr. Arun, you can also.
I think it's a very good question, because with respect to the career pathway, that as per the UGC guidelines, honors programs have been introduced mainly for the candidates with the research talent to join directly to the PhD program. As Madam already briefed, there are certain requirements. And also there is one is the UGC requirement, and over and above, the university is also defining certain checkpoint to progress to the honors program. The first important thing is with respect to the CGPA. That is defined as per the university guidelines. And the second important thing is when they are completing their graduate programs with honors, suppose if the student is interested to pursue their PhD, on the 4th year of their graduate programs or during the honors training, they can select a topic in such a way that they can continue that particular research questions subsequently as a PhD programs also. That is one aspect. Once they successfully completed the honors program, there is again selection process, or somebody completed the UGC NET. There may not be a university selection process again. They can directly enroll to the PhD. However, if they meet the required CGPA. And there are certain coursework, minimum of 12 credit is the mandatory requirement of the UGC. It varies, 12 to 16 is the minimum requirement. With that, the students can pursue the full-time PhD program. Hope I am clear with that. Yes.
Good morning, sir. I am Nalin Priyani, and palliative care was just discussed. And apart from palliative care, there are also other niche topics such as forensic and aviation and so on. So can you shed light on how a person can make something out of these niche topics or niche areas in psychology?
I think regarding the forensic, I have already mentioned during my presentation also. With the BA or applied psychology or with the masters, you get an opportunity to work in the forensic areas. There is an opportunity for you to go to the aviation. However, this all actually the niche area where certain micro credentials are also required, because only the degree will not cover the entire skill or the knowledge specific to the specific niche area. We may have to complete certain micro credentials. Then definitely with this qualifications, you get an opportunity to work in those areas. There is no registration required. I repeat, the NCHP or the RCA registration is mainly related to the person who is working in the mental health division for the assessment and for the diagnosis and for the counseling or other rehabilitations. Otherwise, in other areas, these two regulators license is not essential. Okay.
Yeah, so we have this question from one of the prospective students. Can I pursue MA, MSc in psychology without already holding a BA degree? To just answer that question, you may have either BA or BSc degree. The minimum credit requirement to do to gain entry into masters is 24 credits of your courses have to be from psychology. That is the eligibility. So your degree can either be from BA or BSc, but the credit requirement is 24 in psychology. This is there. And another question that we have is, what are the best career options beside clinical psychology after a BA in psychology in India, and what steps should I follow to build a successful career in this field? I think during the course of the next 2 sessions also, this question will be answered, and I'm sure our speakers will be shedding more light on the various other career opportunities available other than what Professor Arun has already shared. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. My question is there a scope to shift to the corporate sector if we graduate with clinical psychology?
Yes. The corporate sector with any psychology qualifications, you are eligible to join.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To that, we have multiple colleagues around the world who have done, even after an MPhil, gone on to the corporate world, because the clinical skills that you develop does give you an advantage that people who have studied other disciplines might not have. How human interaction works, how empathy works, how like understanding human behavior itself. So the kind of arena that you might go into might slightly differ. It might not be core human resources or core acquisition, those kind of areas, but there are ample opportunities within a corporate setting as well, either as in wellness or in learning and development.
Good morning, sir. This is G and I'm third year psychology student. So the question that I have is that are there any values or skills that are highly valuable to have beyond academic or educational qualification or certifications, apart from what we learn, such as empathy, or what are undervalued by college students?
You mean to say there are additional value added courses or the certification?
Yes, and skills which are apart from these certifications and values.
Can you make the question more clear? I'm not clear with the question.
So, are there any
Else-
skills that goes undervalued by college students but are highly valued in professional settings?
uh, can you just repeat the question? I'm not clear with the question from MC. That will you just
I think her question is, are there skills which become more prominent in professional settings, which as students they might not value or develop, but in a professional setting they become more important or prominent?
actually the education and the clinical skill is a continuous learning process. So what you learn today with the changes in the science and technology, tomorrow it may be obsolete. So it is important for us to get updated every day in the field, either at in the graduate or the postgraduate level, or when you join any organizations as the team member. It is important for us to get updated with our skill every day. I won't say that what skill you learn today is enough lifelong for your professional career or for any other the approach. It needs to be a continual process.
Good morning, sir. My name is Suman. I'm a BA Psychology 6th semester student. I wanted to add on to the question asked earlier regarding honors, PhD after honors. So if we were to complete a bachelor's in with honors and then pursue a PhD, and post that we would like to become an assistant professor, do we still have to pursue a master's and rewrite NET exam? How is the process to become an academician after we've done a direct PhD?
It's a very good question. This is all with respect to the regulations or the policy decision. As of now, the UGC, that still it is in the draft stage. I think in the near future, definitely it will be released by or the approved by the government. As per the honors, suppose if somebody completes the honors degree, as per the new education policy, if someone wants to pursue their master's degree, they can do 1 year of master's, or they can directly join the PhD program. Once you complete the PhD program, as per the UGC regulation, you are eligible to join as assistant professors in any organization. Okay? So that clarity needs to come. In the policy, in the new education policy, it is defined. But as a regulation from the government, I think that needs to be released. I hope it will be released shortly. The reason I am telling is like someone from India, if we go and do the 1 year of masters in UK, in some of the university, they won't consider the 1 year of master's degree as an equivalent to the 2 years of masters in our country. But in the near future, I think all these things will get resolved. Definitely after the PhD, you will be eligible to join as faculty as an assistant professor with the new education policy guidelines.
Good morning, sir. I wanted to know, I'm Arushita, an MSc Applied Psychology student. I wanted to know, to obtain an RCI license, do I need to do an MCLIN Sci after MSc Applied Psychology, or can I directly proceed to PhD?
If I may answer that question, if you want to practice as a clinical psychologist in India currently, according to RCI regulations, the PhD is not the qualifying degree, it is the Master's in Clinical Psychology. Previously called MPhil, then changed to MA Clinical Psychology. Now it might again now be called MClin Psychology. So that becomes your qualifying degree, and after completing that, you would be able to apply for a RCA license. So to practice as a clinical psychologist, you don't require a PhD, but you do need the Master's in Clinical Psychology.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you again, Dr. Maya, for giving us an overview about the field of psychology and the career paths, and for all the questions. I hope this opened your mind a little bit to what our traditional imagination is of a therapist sitting in a therapy room or in a hospital. There are a lot more opportunities these days, especially with cognitive science and neuroscience and AI expanding a lot. That's where psychology students are a lot in demand. So that's another arena that you can explore apart from all the things that Dr. Maya had mentioned. And the courses that we offer here, I think it was reiterated multiple times that psychology is one field where theory and skill development go hand in hand. And both in our BA and master's courses, we've tried to incorporate both of these aspects and balance it. But that doesn't mean that your learning ends there. Psychology is a field where you have to keep updating yourself. And if you want to work with a specific population or a niche area, such as the ones you mentioned, sports psychology or aviation or forensic, the undergraduate and postgraduate degrees kind of give you the foundation and the foundational skills that then you can go and imbibe the niche knowledge or specific knowledge. So that will definitely have to continue even after your master's. And there are certainly skills that you develop on the job, which is why it's also important that you do as many internships as possible, which is again the reason why internships are an integral part of our both our undergraduate and postgraduate programs. So upskilling, continuous learning, even as a clinical psychologist, once you register, if you want to continue holding your license, every 5 years you will have to show that you have attended these many learning programs and you have updated your knowledge. So always remember that this is a continuous learning process, but at MAHE, our hope is that we give you a strong foundation to utilize this continuous learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arpita, for your kind and supportive words. I now invite Dr. Aditya to share his thoughts on the concerned issue.
Good morning. So I am Aditya. I support the university in its admissions, marketing, and various other activities. But most importantly, I'm a faculty at TAPME. I used to be at the TAPME here also. I used to be the dean here. Then I'm back to my alma mater, or the original TAPME, where I have worked for long. And when Shilpa ma'am said that around 2 months back, she was a little worried with the change in the regulations. The students are worried what will happen. We thought the best thing is to address it on the forefront. This is not only for the prospective students, this is also for many of you, because you are at the cusp, you have not yet graduated, So these regulations apply to you, and I'm sure many of you had doubts in your mind about what would happen to me when I graduate. So I thank Dr. Shilpa for organizing this, and I also thanked Dr. Maya for clarifying the doubts. I'm sure many of your doubts would have been clarified. Uh, Now, first and foremost, there are large number of, you are just in, if you are UG or a PG, this is just a start, okay? Change in career pathways is very, very easy. At least nowadays, it's one of the easiest things to do. Okay, I'm myself an engineer. I worked for an engineer for 2 years, then did an MBA in marketing and finance. Again worked in the sector finance for 2 years, then decided to go into academics, did my PhD, and then I started, I thought I would do a fantastic, a post PhD, I thought my life will be great, teaching, going home, okay. Nothing worked like that, okay. I now see that I'm working much more than what I used to work before, okay. So career pathways change. I have myself changed my roles in the last 10 years, at least 6-7 different roles I have done, and every role required me to learn, relearn a lot. I have handled admissions, I started new program, I have handled placements, okay, and placement requires much more counseling than anyone can ever imagine, okay. When you will do placements, you will understand undue expectations, stress and all, okay. So that's what I'm saying. I would like to clarify two of the questions. This is first is, that's my job, so I have to do it, okay. So all those who are worried about what will happen to them and want to get into corporate, please remember, work for 2 years, do an MBA, okay. Corporate doors are open to you, left, right, center. Someone who has really good psychology understanding and has worked in some role or the other in counseling is extremely valued in the corporate sector, and if you have done an MBA, then your career pathway will zoom, okay. All IIMs, all top schools including TAPME are looking for students with really good understanding of psychology and not just theoretical, practical. That's why we insist on some level of work experience necessary at every place, okay. Even as an engineer, I am looking at good engineers to do MBA, but I want them to be working, not fresh out of the college, running to do MBA. What's the use of your 4 years of education then? Okay, so work, ingrain that knowledge, then come, build on it in an MBA, and you will see your career zooming out. So don't worry. Second thing, someone asked, what are the, I think the girl in the yellow dress asked, what are the values and skills that you don't value as a student, but you will value when you join a corporate? Right, it was a very interesting question. I liked it a lot. Okay, so the most important skill, if you really ask me, that you will value as a corporate is understanding the ecosystem. Okay, the biggest mistake that happens generally when we join company is we expect things to be non-contextual. Our education is non-contextual. When I teach you something, I'm not bringing in a specific context. But when you bring in the context, things will change. Okay, things will be very different from what, because what can work in one context will fail in another context for sure. Okay, we have seen it. Okay, I was astonished. I was speaking with Professor Shilpa when I walked in, and I was telling that when I do some, see, for you the regulations have been the biggest problem, right? They have suddenly caused a lot of upheaval, uncertainty, what to do next. In engineering, it's AI. Because, I'm not sure whether anyone has read of Mythos here. Yeah, Miss, you have read? Yeah, what is it? No. Okay, so what you see, or how many of you use ChatGPT? Be proud of it, Aaron. There is nothing wrong in using ChatGPT. Whoever told you that is wrong. Okay. So ChatGPT is the most basic level of LLM that we are open, which is available in the private space, public space. So we use. Okay. You can give a prompt, an output comes. You have to verify the output before you use it, because below they have already clarified that it can be wrong. But you verify it and use it. Okay. And there is nothing wrong. Like we use a smartwatch, we use a calculator, we use Excel. You will be using ChatGPT in your jobs, whether you like it or not. Only thing is you have to be sure whether the output is correct or not. Mythos is the most advanced level of AI that has been that has developed by Anthropic, and the outcome of Mythos is so strong that it can do the whole coding and output and modifications to an existing software ecosystem on its own. It does not require any human intervention. The fear of Mythos is so high that the government of US has requested Anthropic not to release it. Okay, so this is the first time the government has intervened saying, please do not release it, the job losses will be too heavy. Okay, now think of it, you are an engineer, you are just graduating, and you see something like Mythos. Infosys is saying no more need to recruit anyone, right? Jobs are evaporating left, right, center. So when I suggested, my expectation was this will be an overflowing auditorium, because when I do this at MIT, at Manipal, most of the times, students are standing at the back side, even outside, to know whether they will get a job or not. Okay, but did it work exactly with the way I expected? No. Why? The context is different. Here you are looking at more exploratory approach. There they are very clear they want a job. Okay, completely different context. So miss, the most important thing you should know is context. Second thing, and that is equally important, is clarity of thought. Okay, you are just starting your career. Your question requires much more refinement. You will gain it, okay, for the audience to understand. Just remember this, because many of you would be joining a company or joining something, right? If you are not clear in your thought, the boss never gives you a second opportunity. Okay, he does not have time to clarify your doubts. He is not your teacher. Okay, many people when they come to job, they miss their teachers. Because teachers will spend time clarifying your thought. A boss is not your teacher. He expects you to have clear thought. So it will come, but it was a very good question, so I thought I should address it. So what I am trying to tell you is this is the fantastic opportunity to understand how career pathways can be built. And I am sure Shilpa ma'am has brought in people who created unique career pathways from their background. So don't be afraid. The government regulations have not stopped anyone from doing anything in this country. Okay. My best doctor, and I should not be telling it, but the best doctor that ever treated me, our family doctor, was a BAMS, not even an MBBS. Okay. And he was considered to be the most successful practicing guy till the age of 90 in my hometown. Okay. He has just stopped 1 year back the practice at the age of 90. Okay, his experience was much better than many other medical MD, MS and others. So this government these regulations should not stop you. Don't break the law, but there are a huge number of career pathways available to you to explore. Please go ahead and explore them. Wishing you all the best, and thanks ma'am for having me here.
Thank you, sir. Those were certainly reassuring words. I now invite Dr. Shilpa to kindly felicitate Dr. Aditya. Sir, please. Our next session is with Dr. Ashwini NV and Dr. Kalpana Purushottam, moderated by Dr. Shriya Menon. Dr. Ashwini is the founder director of Mukta Foundation, which is an organization committed to preventing interpersonal abuse and violence, such as child sexual abuse, bullying, dating violence, domestic violence, sexual harassment in public spaces. She is also the CEO of Flourish Life School, a company that provides mental health solutions to individuals and organizations. She is a trustee of Aveksha, a women's rights organization, and the co-chair of Young Indians Bengaluru Rural Initiatives, which is a part of Confederation of Indian Industries. She is a gold medalist in postgraduate studies in psychological counseling and holds a PhD in psychology pertaining to self-inflicted burns among Indian women. She was recognized as one of 100 leaders under 30 from across the globe for her idea titled Focus, the formula to foster mental health in low and middle income countries at St. Gallen Symposium, Switzerland in May 2015. She is the recipient of Rotary Bangalore's Vocational Service Award 2018-19 for her work in the area of training and promotion of mental health. In the year 2019, she directed a campaign titled Child Safety National Priority, where she traveled non-stop for 90 days from January 1st to April 1st, 2019, to all 29 states and 3 union territories to conduct over 150 training sessions on prevention of child sexual abuse, thereby becoming the first person to have done this consecutively in the country. In the last decade, she has conducted over 2,000 training programs pertaining to the prevention of interpersonal abuse and violence and promotion of mental health. She runs a free psychological counseling helpline for survivors of abuse and violence. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Kalpana Purushottam brings more than 25 years of multidisciplinary experience across academic, corporate, and development sectors. A trained peer affirmative counselor, she serves as a member of the Juvenile Justice Board, Bangalore Urban, and faculty for social and community psychology at IIPR, Bengaluru. She is a passionate grassroots practitioner and child rights activist and creates social impact through education, compassion, and engagement with youth in the juvenile justice system and other marginalized groups. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Shriya is an assistant professor of psychology at DLHS and co-founder of the Pratibhi Counseling. With a PhD from Delhi University and ICSSR doctoral fellowship, she designed RESCOPE for military children. A practicing counselor with more than 6 years of experience, she researches in resilience, gender, and child adolescent well-being. The floor is all yours, ma'am. Please come on stage.
Thank you so much, Akansha, for that lovely introduction. I'll just briefly set the tone for today's discussion. When we talk about career pathways, it's mainly we look at it from a structured perspective. But I think both of you come from, from a varied educational background and what you do at the moment. So if we could look at it from a perspective of what are certain things that we learned in college and university during our degrees and how we had to unlearn that when you actually go on to the field, that would be something that we can look at. We could also, look at the reflective perspectives that both of you have had during your practice, especially with individuals who that come from like a vulnerable side of the society. Right. So today's session is really about understanding those journeys more closely, what stays constant, what changes, and what it actually takes to grow within this field. So to begin with, I would like to start with both of your experiences. What are some of the core psychological skills that have remained constant across the different roles that you've worked in? So I think we can start with Ashwini ma'am.
Thanks, Dr. Shreya, for that question. So when you're asking what have been those core psychological skills that I would consider has stayed constant, I'm just reflecting back my 15 years of professional journey in this field. I started in 2011. If my math is correct, though I'm bad at math, therefore I chose psychology. 2026, it's 15 years of journey. My internship was in a de-addiction center. Then I moved to working with children who would run away from home. So I worked in a boys, a center where they would have run away from their home. And then I moved on to being an academician, and then I started Mukta. And Mukta is where I work with survivors of abuse and violence of all form, including the witnesses of violence. And now, recently, I've also started this company called Flourish Life School, which is more wellness focused. Now, it seems too diverse, but when I'm reflecting what has stayed constant, there is one hypothesis that comes to my mind, which is called the dodo bird hypothesis. What is this dodo bird hypothesis? Those of you who are also into fiction, dodo bird is one character in Alice in Wonderland. And I'll not take you through the entire novel for sure. There is this one scene, one chapter in Alice in Wonderland, wherein Dodo Bird would ask all animals to run, and it says there is a competition. Whoever reaches first is the winner. And they all run. And finally, they all reach at different paces. And then everybody is asking Dodo Bird, tell me who is the winner. And then the Dodo Bird says, all of you are winners. And each animal is so irritated and frustrated with this dodo bird verdict. And now this dodo bird verdict is being hypothesized in the field of psychotherapy and counseling. By that, what I mean is, across these diverse settings, I've had different favorites. At one point, Gestalt therapy was appealing. At another point in time, SFBT was to die for. And right now, where I am, response-based narrative practice seems very appealing. But what has stayed constant, like that dodo bird verdict, is the humanistic, the relational aspect. The dodo bird verdict in psychotherapy and counseling is the effectiveness of therapy that we have, as we are sitting here, 500 plus psychotherapies and still counting. The effectiveness of therapy is not because of what's different between each of these therapies. Instead, the dodo bird verdict is, it is because of what's common among all these psychotherapeutic approaches. And if you ask me what is really common of all the psychotherapeutic approaches, it's our skill set to establish that therapeutic, alliance with our clients, irrespective of what their background is. Today, if you ask me, I've worked with perpetrators of violence. I've worked with rapists. If I can establish that therapeutic alliance with a rapist, because at the end of the day, that rapist or that perpetrator of domestic violence is a client with mental health concerns, we are successful and effective to an extent. So what has stayed constant is the skill that's required to build that therapeutic alliance, have that as the foundation, and upon that foundation, may you use any other psychotherapeutic approach that appeals to you, that's necessary to the client. I think that would be my perspective.
Thank you so much. So, like what ma'am said, the therapeutic alliance, I think what all of us learn in class, rapport building, is something that has to be done in person, and I think that it could be one of the most difficult things to achieve when you actually go out on field there. I would also like to know Dr. Kalpana's experiences and what core psychological skills remain constant across the various change in fields.
Thank you, Dr. Shriya. A very good morning to all the students here. I'm delighted to be with young people, talk to you all. And it's not very often that we get to talk about our journeys. Very often we are asked to talk about what we know. Teach us CBT, teach us REBT, teach us this theory and that theory. So it's very refreshing to actually be asked to share what our journeys look like, because I believe that there is so much richness and depth in this sharing that we sit in a room full of people and tell stories and listen to stories and learn from each other. So thank you, Shriya, for having me here today. If there are any parents here, I would want to tell you that I hear you. I'm also a parent. I also have a daughter, 6th semester, psychology, a lot of questions, right? So I also resonate with a lot of the concerns that are very legitimate questions that many of you are sitting here today. And I'm hoping, I don't know if Ashwini and I can answer those questions for you, but I hope we can start some conversations that get you thinking and that help you to come back with questions that we can respond to. Having said that, Dr. Shriya, when you ask me about, and I was also listening very closely to what Dr. Aditya was speaking, I really struggle to put myself in any of these boxes, right? Because I heard Dr. Aditya speak about, somebody asked, so can I get into HR? Somebody said, how do I get into corporate? So it gets me thinking, because for about 12 years, after my master's in psychology, I worked in the corporate sector. I worked in HR. I grew to work in management and leadership roles. Was very happy. And by conventional measures of success, I think I did pretty well for myself. Okay. Very happy. So if your question is that after doing psychology, can I get into the corporate? Of course you can. What you do in the corporate is very important, right? So by those measures, would I call myself an organizational psychologist? Maybe. I don't know, that's not the degree I got. Okay. After which to this day, I continue to, for the last 13 years, I teach social and community psychology at the Indian Institute of Psychology and Research. So does that make me a social psychologist? I don't know. Okay. I continue to work with communities for the last 2 decades. So does that make me a community psychologist? I think it does, because I have a certain understanding of the grassroots through actual work with them, not from my degree, but from having actually lived, because I work with marginalized communities, I work with Dalit communities, I work with women, I work with children, I work with children in conflict with law, various vulnerable and marginalized communities. So does that make me a community psychologist? I suspect it does, but I'm still not sure. Okay. I also have a counseling practice like Ashwini, where I see a range of children and families from across different populations. And is there a particular frame, or is there a particular kind of school of thought that I use? Frankly, I know we are supposed to follow those steps that you say, rapport building, paraphrasing, summarizing, open-ended question, probing, and God knows whatever else. Half the time, I don't know if I'm doing any of that. Okay. Like when Ashwini was saying, all I see is this human in front of me that is trying to share in their own, their own struggle and their own anguish in their limited way, and in my limited way, I'm trying to make sense of it, right? With all that my life has taught me how to and shown me. So does that make me a counseling psychologist? I don't know. I'm partial towards the feminist school of thought and feminist therapy, but I'm kind of wary of using any labels and isms, because you never know how someone else is defining it. So my idea of what this looks like and what this seems like might be very different from how someone else is, using the same frame to understand something. So I'm very careful not to slot myself anywhere. Okay. So am I an organizational psychologist? Am I a counseling psychologist? Am I, there's a whole lot of clinical practice. I'm a social psychologist, community psychologist. And in the midst of all of this, there is also one side of me that's very passionate about social issues and advocacy. And I find myself gravitating towards the social justice psychologist. I don't know if we have a course for that yet, but I teach it. I teach it everywhere I go. Okay? I hope one day they will give a degree for it, but if they don't, and should you decide to teach, I would love to teach it. Because I teach it no matter what psychology paper I'm teaching, I teach what social justice means and should look like. I write. Okay? I worked in the juvenile justice system for close to about 16, 18 years. I'm losing count now. But so does that make me, I read the word correctional counselor somewhere in one of the slides. And something in me was like, no, that's not what I want to be called. I don't go around correcting people. No, I don't, right? And yet that's the technical word that we are using. I would like to think I'm someone who's there, who's holding space for that troubled child who happens to be on the wrong side of the law, right? And that most probably comes closest to being defined as a social justice psychologist. So I just want to leave you with this thought that at different points in time, there will be different labels that you will be known by. And frankly, they don't matter. As long as you know what you want, as long as you know what you're passionate about, what is it that gives you joy and meaning and purpose? And if you find that in whatever work you do and whatever populations you choose to work with, I think it's just fine. And for that, I think the study of psychology is just fantastic, because it gives you a fabulous platform to just take off in any direction that you wish to, right? Oh, I forgot to tell you that I've been working in the legal system. So somebody mentioned about forensics. And without having a degree in forensics, I teach forensic psychology. So I don't know what that makes me, right? So for all of you who are so excited about doing a PhD and, after BA, can I do this and whatever? Slow down, slow down. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. There's so much to choose from. And before we go out there in the world to, conquer all there is, maybe just slow down, sit with yourself, ask yourself, what makes me feel happy? Where do I find my meaning? What makes my heart go a little faster? What are the things that bother me about the world around me? And I said, this can't be like this. I've got to change this. And then, what can I change in myself to be able to make that change happen? I would think those really are my reflections, really. I don't know if I've added to the confusion, but I never promised clarity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana. I think what I heard from the both of them is one of the basic skills that both of you have portrayed through your experiences is the connection of looking at another human being as a human being. So the fact that you look at the other person not with labels that, or the fact that they did this, or they committed this crime or that crime, but you look at them from a lens of being a human. And I think that connection is what I think stays with us as, what reflects as a psychologist, and what helps us build that connection with another human being, for them to trust us and then eventually build rapport. So thank you for that. Now, knowing your varied experiences, like even Dr. Ashwini having varied experiences in terms of clinical psychology, and also in terms of working with perpetrators and also survivors. Dr. Kalpana also working in the social justice sector. What are certain things or skills that you had to unlearn to, be at a place where you are at this point in time? So I would like to know, and I think most of our students would also want to know, because there are a lot of things that we learn in classroom settings that, for example, CBT. So when you go on ground and, apply the principles of CBT there, how is it different? What are some of the things that you had to unlearn to relearn some new things that, are context specific? So if either of you can go ahead.
I'm just reflecting on, a couple of experiences that really made me rethink and also change to the needs of, my client. Two examples on the top of my mind. I'm sure irrespective of which specialization that the students are going through, we all remember the consent forms, the importance of it. Till I met a burn survivor, self-immolation, the topic was my PhD topic, wherein I interacted with almost 327, the data of 327 women who had burnt themselves to escape domestic violence. Consent form, so important, right? You can't move without it. Till I met this lady without fingers, completely burnt, can't hold fingers. We had to adapt there. And I have another example. This was in the first year of my, practice. I met this lady, and you know that there is this solar attending skills, right? And sit squarely, and all of that. And I met this lady. I had put the chairs in exactly the same manner. She sat there, and the first 10 minutes is like this. She was just not able to get comfortable there. And then when I checked with her, are you okay? And she says, in Kannada, she tells me, ma'am, nan yavattu chair mel kutila, ma'am. Yavattu chair mel kutila is I have never sat on a chair. If we could only sit on the floor and talk, I'd be so much more comfortable. And I remember later we said, why not? And then we sat on, the floor. She stretched her leg, and then you need to see how well she spoke about her life journey. Now, I'm just giving these two examples to share how, unless we adapt ourselves to the life circumstances of our clients. For example, the closed room, the privacy. When you meet a survivor of sexual assault, that privacy, that closed clinical, the room is not therapeutic. For all this survivor might feel so much more comfortable with you, the therapist, if he could sit maybe a little outside, and there are few people also passing by. That for that person would be a lot more a comforting experience than, a locked door. So what I'm requesting, all of you wanting to make this career in the mental health field is, in our degrees, we shall learn what is applicable to the majority of the population. But in your practice, when you step into the real world, that person that you're meeting may not really have circumstances that matches to the majority, whose life, keeping that at the back of our mind, we've learned certain things. So therefore, adding to the previous point, that one core psychological skill is also our own adaptability. And our adaptability can only come in if we bring in what is called the ecological perspective, that nobody's mental health is exclusively dependent on what's happening in their mind. Instead, it's a reflection of what's happening in their world. So I think that adaptability, the skill in us should definitely be something that enables us to keep on learning, unlearning, and relearning. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwini. Dr. Kalpana, what are your thoughts? What are some of the things that you had to unlearn when you went to the field?
I think I can write another book on the number of mistakes I've made, on the number of things I've had to unlearn, on the number of things that after being thrown in the field, you say, oh, I didn't know this, right? There are just simply too many. In fact, when Dr. Ashwini was sharing, I was just thinking, when we are students, how we have this very romantic notion of how the therapy room looks like, that it'll have cream walls, there'll be a painting on the wall, bhini bhini khushbu hogi, curtains honge, couch hoga, and then I'm working in Madiwala market, Tarkari market, okay, where when I'm expected to counsel children who are in conflict with the law, who have already, when the crime that they are alleged to have committed, they were less than 18, but now they're out on bail and they are over 18, and they've probably got involved in another crime, and therefore they're being brought from the Parampanagrara jail, central jail, which is for adults. And here you go, with all your therapy, okay, and the counseling room. And then you have this police guy who brings this child in the police van, and they say, madam, Madi, counseling Madi. Okay, and you're where? Kahan pe kya Madi? What am I supposed to do, right? And all that you will be allowed, and then I would be, sir, can I take, you can't move, right? So, because their instruction is that this person might run away. So, so you have this child who's sitting inside the police van, and this police person with all the generosity of his heart, okay, will say, "Na naache nodtini," okay, which means I'll turn that side, tum karo apna counseling, right? And so, when you were, I was just thinking, so just tell me again, when am I supposed to do rapport building? And what am I supposed to do by way of case history taking? And what am I supposed to paraphrase? And what is that open-ended question again? Nothing. Because here is this child, and even before I can start saying something or trying to figure out what I have to say, they'll say, madam, next case nimde. Karita idare. That means go. And there's this child just looking at you saying, what? You're supposed to be my counselor, right? So very often what we imagine how counseling looks like, what therapy looks like, and what life actually throws at you are completely different. Okay? I once had this session for a bunch of adolescents, on psychoeducation, another favorite word of ours. We like to say that we will psychoeducate because we are trained to psychoeducate. So at the same observation home at Madiwala, I had a bunch of, about 20 kids. And so we were conducting this psychoeducation program. And so the first question was, you introduce yourself, and then you're so sure that this is the language everybody knows, right? So you're saying, let's start at the very beginning, right? So do you all know what a counselor is? Here I'm expecting that, ye to pata hi hoga. This to first semester mein humko sikhate hain, right? And that question that Jia asked, saying, what is that one skill that sometimes we undervalue, we don't realize the value of, and yet that is something that's so pivotal to our very profession as psychologists. Jia, I would tell you that it's language, and it is local language. Learn to do your counseling in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Gujarati, Indian languages, right? Because when you're talking to this child who's sitting there and you go, like what Mariavi was speaking this morning, help me understand, what are you going to say? Unconditional positive regard. That child is going to say, right? What does that even mean, right? It's all fine for us when we are trained to say, you must have empathy, Pashupati. Child is not understanding anything, right? Child is not understanding anything. So when I ask this question, saying, so we all know what a counselor is, right? Who's a counselor and what does a counselor do? So there's this, of the 15, 20 kids, most of them are just sitting and staring back at me, right? But there's this one enthusiastic kid that puts up its hand and you're like, wow, savior, because somebody is at least responding, okay? And this kid says, I know what a counselor is. I'm like, yeah, so tell us, educate us and let the psychoeducation begin. And the child says, Auntie, counselor andre adu avagavag bartaralla municipality nalli election time alli bartare vote keltare aamele gayab aagtare. Okay, so for those of you, English translation, it means those guys from the municipality who come every now and then, they ask us for some votes and then they vanish for the next few years. Usko bolte hain counselor. Okay, so all of this, you go with I've done masters, PhD, I did some multiple other degrees also, certification. UGC said I'm a good person. University said take gold medal. आपकी बिल्कुल औकात नहीं है, ठीक है? Because that child will very clearly tell you, I don't know who you are, and this is what I know who a counselor is. Okay? And if you are to make something of it, if you are to mean something to that human, then what Dr. Ashwini so beautifully said, you have to mean something to that child. That child has to mean something to you. And then it doesn't matter what label you're called by, whether you're called forensic psychologist, what is that, correctional something, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. End of the day, that human you have communicated, your life is important to me, your story is important to me. I'm here to listen to what you have to say, right? And yes, we are taught about listening as a skill, active listening and all that in our counseling, I think semester 4 or something, there's a paper and all that. But I would say the skill that you're saying that I had to unlearn was to listen to what is not being said, not just to what is being said, especially when you're working with children and with vulnerable populations. Because these are also humans who've been conditioned to say things to make you happy, to please you. So they will say things that they think what you want to hear. So you have to sit, you have to wait, you have to be patient till they are willing to show themselves for the authentic people that they are. And they will do that only when you are being authentic and saying, yeah, it's okay, I don't exactly know how this CBT thing works. It's okay. Today you've not done homework, you've not done your journaling, no problem. Let's sit, let's talk. So for me, a core skill would be unlearning that entire thing of listen, to saying listen to what is not being said, listen to the silences, listen to the pauses, listen to what that little body is, struggling to communicate and just holding in. So to me, that took a lifetime of unlearning. Okay? And the second very important thing for me about unlearning was to sit with discomfort. We're all taught in our entire education system from the time I think we write our 10th boards is the best bacha is the bacha who knows all the answers. And all the time we are the ones, we are rewarded for that, for knowing all the answers. So when actually life throws you in situations where you don't know the answer, and human beings will do that to you over and over and over again, you don't know how to deal with that. You don't know how to deal with that complexity. Okay? You don't know how to deal with that discomfort that comes from saying, shucks, I don't know this. ये तो CBT में था ही नहीं, ये वाला step तो RABT में बताया ही नहीं, you know. So that not knowing and being able to sit with it, hold it for yourself and hold space for that human who's trusting that maybe you know something and coming to you as a counselor. I think these two have been very, very difficult for me to unlearn. And I don't even know if I've succeeded in doing that. I try. At best, I can say I try.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana. So I think that has intrigued me for, and put me into a thought for me to think and understand that what could be some of the, whatever these students study in theory, what are some of the, what is the importance of these theoretical underpinnings in actual practice. So what is it that some of the things that they study in theory in classrooms, how can they help in in the field? So now that we've looked at what are some of the things that we need to unlearn when we go to the field, what are some of the things that they can carry and that will help them in adapting to the specific context? If you can throw light on that.
Well, something that's running on the top of my mind, given the focus of our panel discussion, is psychological counseling and how that connects, other domains of psychology and mental health. So in my mind, there are 3 levels of work that the mental health professionals could engage in. 1, prevention, then comes intervention, and then comes postvention. Now, if you are looking at our training, somehow the domain of mental health, I don't intend to say it's controversial, but then our focus is so much on intervention and postvention. By that, what I mean is prevention is how equipped are we to stop mental health concerns even before it emerges in the population. Intervention is there are signs of distress, and do we intervene right there to ensure that distress does not become disorder? Postvention is it's already a disorder, and now how do we ensure it does not worsen? Somewhere in our domain of the mental health, the focus is mostly on postvention. Disorders have already occurred, and then we meet them in the clinical the setting to ensure that it does not worsen. So one other skill and one other focus that I definitely request the students of psychology to also carry with you is, are we using our skill set, our knowledge of the domain to do our bit for prevention? Should we become the cops who will come to the crime scene after crime has happened? Or should we be those cops who will ensure crime does not happen in the very first place? So I think if the focus is on prevention, and I think we need to build those skill set and more focus on, building those capacities to prevent, the next step would be to intervene when there is distress, to ensure that distress does not become a disorder so that we meet people at the postvention level. Yeah. So I think with that context, irrespective of our specialization, if your focus is that I shall prevent distress in the first place, prevention. The second focus could be that I'll ensure distress does not become disorder. That is your intervention. I think that's one other additional skill set that I definitely request all of you to, the work on. In fact, that was my journey as well. When I started Mukta, before that for 5 years, I was an academician. Looking at that ICD-10 back then and DSM-4, TR was what I was teaching. Now I think it's 5, DSM-5. So many disorders. And when I met people in counseling context, an incidental observation was that they could be suffering from anxiety disorder, maybe mood disorders, but the causal factor was some form of interpersonal violence that they had survived. Maybe here is a 20-year-old carrying the memory of the trauma of child sexual abuse or bullying. So then what I understood was I was meeting them at the postvention level. Disorder is already there. But if I am the one to take a prevention perspective, I should not be working only on the disorders. Instead, I need to be contributing to preventing child sexual abuse. As a psychologist, I need to be contributing to preventing bullying. Can you imagine, a lady is getting beaten up, or there is a threat that I'm going to murder you. Can this person ever heal from the trauma, which we can label it as disorder? So, prevention perspective would mean that we go back and address the root causal factors. So I said there is prevention, intervention, and postvention. If we go even one step before prevention, right, there is something called primordial work. What is primordial work? I learned this particular word in the context of interviewing a few psychologists for my organization. And I was taken aback, and very sad experience. Somebody, a distinction holder, a gold medalist told me, I don't do life skills training. I only do casework. What does that mean? Here is a mental health professional who is telling casework means which level? Primordial work, prevention, intervention, or postvention. For somebody to become a case, they're already at which level? Postvention level. So when a mental health professional tells, I don't do life skills training, that means they're unwilling to work at the primordial level, the prevention level. They're telling, I'm only going to work at the last level. It's very unfortunate, a reality. So those of you wanting to work in the realm of psychology, mental health, let's broaden our scope of, work and vision for the field. Please build that spirit and the skill set to also work at primordial level. Primordial level is life skills. If we can empower everybody on empathy, everybody on assertiveness, they'll be able to draw boundaries. And in that, they won't get burnt out. In that, they won't develop mood disorders. Yeah, that would be my request and suggestion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwini. Dr. Kalpana?
I also happen to be a teacher, and so I will respond to Dr. Shreya by saying, study well, learn your theories. The experience is fine, that'll come later. Now, at present, here and now, your responsibility is to first study what there is to study right now. All of this theoretical knowledge that you are studying, this is the foundation. This is what will hold you instead when you sit in that police van and not knowing, what should I do? That is when you will remember. There was that teacher in semester 2 who told you, when in doubt, when you don't know anything, take 3 deep breaths. Okay? So please go back to first studying what you're supposed to study really, really well. Understand. And yet, in that studying of the theories, because what really are these theories? This is the collective wisdom of humans who came before us, who sat with these questions that we sit with today and grappled and struggled with these very doubts and dilemmas. And these were what they thought were solutions. So study them. Look at what you can get from it. Look at what you need to learn from that. And yet, don't do it mechanically. Apply your mind. Critically examine which of these things make sense to you. Which of these theories resonate with you somewhere? What of it has personal meaning for you? Okay? And then you will see that that theory is no longer a black and white thing in the textbook. It will come alive for you in ways you hadn't imagined. Okay? I started working with victims of child sexual abuse 25 years ago, girl children. Over and over again, you would listen to stories of violence and abuse and be filled with so much rage. Okay? And the one place that I could take my rage was the feminist therapy, because it told me it was all right to be angry. Okay? Otherwise, I wouldn't have known what to do with that rage that I felt. Okay? And yet, you also get tempered when you learn that there are other ways of being and doing. And then what Dr. Ashwini put, so eloquently, she spoke about prevention. And then you take a personal decision for yourself saying, how many more years am I going to sit and listen to these stories of, over and over again of violence, because this is after the act has happened. And therefore, a personal decision for me was, I'm going to now work with boys. So for the next 18 years, I didn't do work with the girls. I worked with the boys to say who is causing the harm. We need to address that. So I don't know if I can work with adult men because I would get triggered and there is too much anger sitting within me, not even anger, white hot rage. So which is not good as a therapist. So I cannot be an efficient or effective therapist for adult men. But children, yes, bring them on. Okay. So that is where you find personal meaning. So I went on to work with the justice system. I went on to work with the juvenile justice system, where I worked with troubled boys, boys who caused sexual harm, boys who were thinking of causing sexual harm. And then at that level, when you're able to say, there is another way of being, you know, and come, let's explore that. Let's learn to be different. Let's navigate this trajectory that you're on of violence and say, is there another way? Is there another pathway to your life that we can co-create? Okay. Then all those theories begin to make sense. So please, do not for a moment put any of these. The syllabus and curriculum is there for a reason. Please study it and question it critically, examine it, see what of it makes sense to you, and then go. But it is only an indicative thing. It is not an exhaustive thing. Theories are indicative; they are not exhaustive. So after you studied what you studied here, go out there, train more, learn more, do your certifications, do your internships, come work with people like us, come into the field, get tanned, burn in the sun, learn how to work, right? And then you will have that depth and intensity that, I sense so many of you when you ask your questions about, can I do a PhD, right? So do your PhD from the School of Life. Come work with us. The PhDs will come when they have to.
Thank you so much. So as both our panelists have rightly said, you need to focus on theories. That is important because I think that is what makes learning those theories and knowing those theories is what makes you different from people who don't know those theories. Because now that you've learned to question it, now that you know those theories exist, the fact that you are able to apply those theories into the field settings is something that makes, I think, a psychology student different from somebody who would not know the importance of the theories that were taught to them, right? So like both our panelists have rightly mentioned, that this is something that we have to focus on to know and understand ourselves better and also the people out there. So if you don't question the theories, if you don't think about the things that that you should be questioning, the criticality of the theory is something that would not you would not be able to look into. The moment you start questioning about the theories, the moment you start looking into the criticality of it, that is something that's going to help you in the field when you go work with people, right? So moving on from that, it's always the process of unlearning. It's very important in counseling. We already talked about relearning as well. If I have to build on that, where do you find clinical psychology frameworks most useful, and where do you think they fall short in the realities that you worked with?
So two aspects to your question, right? One is, where do I find the frameworks of clinical psychology really useful, and where does it have certain shortcomings? First, the moment human distress has become a disorder, definitely the frameworks of clinical psychology would work. But where is the shortcoming? I think the shortcoming is in taking humans towards the flourishing side. I don't think the traditional clinical psychology focuses on illness, yes, then average human mental health is where the work ends there. I think from that point onwards towards the flourishing side, towards the wellness side, is the beginning of counseling psychology. That would be one. The second idea is, once again, like I've already said, and I wish to reiterate, which is the framework of clinical psychology is not preventive in nature predominantly. I think prevention is therefore a focus of the realm of counseling psychology. And the other, the limitation, because see, the traditional clinical psychology is very Western in its orientation, given what we say, the father of psychoanalysis is Viennese, and so is the entire, the list of the contributors later. I think the shortcoming is also that the traditional clinical psychology has not incorporated adequately the indigenous, the knowledge. The whole word and one side cannot be dominating our understanding of what the mental health is. So I'd like to summarize it with 3 points. One is the limitation of the current, the framework of the clinical psychology would be that it is not adequately wellness focused, it's not adequately prevention focused, and it has not adequately incorporated the native, the indigenous, the knowledge of the people that contributes to their own, the mental health. I would like to summarize it, this way.
Dr. Kalpana, your thoughts?
I just want to add probably one quick point to what Dr. Ashwini spoke about, and that would be is that, she put it very gently, I might not say it so elegantly. A lot of clinical psychology is around white male models, white male Western models that simply our bodies don't understand, our minds don't understand. So where is the anchoring in Indian social, cultural contexts? And I believe context is everything. God lives in the details. And that context is entirely missing. That socio-cultural context is entirely missing. For example, I see this in my practice. The way, we learn depression, okay, these are the 6 warning red flags and signals and whatever it is. But the fact that depression can present very differently for a Dalit man, for a Muslim woman, class, caste, religion, gender, sexuality, where you live, what is your position in the family, all of this has a huge impact on how I experience that mental illness or, a mental health problem. And that I feel is completely missing in the way we study clinical psychology, right? So for me, I think that is the missing gap, the understanding of those intersectionalities. I think that is missing.
So would you say that that's where counseling could step in and address those shortcomings there and, maybe build up on those shortcomings?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on, I was just wondering that do you find yourselves moving closer to or further from traditional clinical perspectives?
I think in continuation, to our last, the response, it's moving away would be a bit of an exaggeration, but moving with, but forward, yeah? So I think the traditional clinical psychology, like we have reiterated, it is Western in its very foundational, the understanding. I think you need to really look at the research studies on the incorporating indigenous, the knowledge. Today, maybe what is EFT? The other day, somebody, an EFT practitioner was sharing this anecdote with me. You know EFT, right? It's not that, I'm not talking about the emotionally focused therapy. I'm talking about the emotional, the freedom technique, which is, gaining a lot of the empirical evidence. This EFT practitioner told me about how I teach, this person said, I teach people to tap. Let's say somebody comes with the grief. I'm training people to tap on the energy points. And this person said, but do you know that thousands of years ago, when people cried because of grief, when they would chest beat and, the cry, that's the fundamental principle is the same. So how can we eliminate this indigenous knowledge which is already native to our land and just package it in a much more better manner, in a much more, the scientific, so-called scientifically is also within quotes, scientifically sounding manner and repackage it. So all that I'm saying is there are energy-based, the healing systems, that are gaining empirical evidence. Today, if a certain pharmacological treatment has 65% of effectiveness, there are studies, talking about in random controlled trials, there are the studies talking about certain the energy-based healing techniques that are giving almost the same result. So all that I'm requesting is let's be, open-minded. I remember this line of the Socrates, who says, I'm paraphrasing, the sign of a mature mind is neither accepting anything readily nor rejecting anything readily. I think the indigenous knowledge is here. Let's not readily reject it also. Let's not readily accept it also. Let's take it through the rigorous scientific tools of, assessment and then see what it can contribute to, the traditional, the clinical psychology.
So I think for our students here, from academia to practice, what kind of approach do you think a student should work upon?
Would that be in terms of the counseling practice that you're speaking about?
Yes.
Okay. See, I can only speak from my personal experience, and I would say that to me, authenticity is a core value. So first to yourself, just be true. Before we go out there and say, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to heal you, I'm going to, yourself, check with yourself, where am I? What are the wounds I'm sitting with? What are those parts of me that are unhealed? What are those parts of me that are still raw and hurting that I certainly am carrying into the therapy space with me? Okay. And if I can be, mindful about it, I can be vulnerable about it, I can be honest about it. We don't have to be the experts all the time. It's all right. And I think, and this is something that children have shown me, they're so generous. They're so kind. They forgive your ignorance. They're okay if you say, I don't know. They're okay if you say, I'll find out and come and tell you in the next session. And they're like, it's okay. Even I don't know many things. They're so kind. And yet we're so scared. We're so afraid of showing that we don't know something. So for me, I think authenticity would be very, very crucial as a practice, as an approach. The second thing I would say is competence, to be just so good at what you do, right? And for that, you have to read books, actual books with pages, not reels, not doom scrolling, not WhatsApp University, books, actual books, libraries. Talk to humans who know, talk to humans who've lived before you, like your teachers, like some of your parents here, to other humans. Okay? They may not know theories of psychology, but they've lived their life. There's so much to learn about psychology from lived experience. So just respecting that lived experience in whatever form it comes, okay? And building your competence on that, because that is so much truer than sitting and learning about somebody who did an experiment in a closed glass laboratory halfway across the world and died 400 years ago. This to me is more real. So that is something that has helped me stay authentic. And I think in the process of being competent, very importantly, to also be compassionate, to not forget compassion. Because somewhere in trying to be this, competent, confident, competitive professionals who want to be everywhere. You know, we want to be in the corporate, we want to be in academia, we want to be here, and it's great. Ambition is great. But I think at the heart of a really, really good counselor and a good human being lies compassion. So to me, I think that really would be the approach that I know the first thing we say in counseling is don't give advice. So I wouldn't give it as advice, but I would state it as an invitation to explore as an approach for you, because this is something that my life is borne witness to. So I invite you to check it out and see for yourself how it sits with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana. So I was also wondering that Dr. Aditya was, shedding some light on how for engineering students, since AI is taking over, and how that, is possibly a threat to the jobs that they would have, right? So similarly for us, what do you think are, some of the things that we bring to the table that, the technology, can't replace us? So what are some of the things that counselors especially, or counseling psychologists bring to the table that AI cannot replace, or technology for that reason can't replace?
I just want to share something that I was sharing with Dr. just before we came in for the session, which is that someone that I know, a technical engineer from one of the premier institutes in this country, is an MTech, and also has done his MBA, is presently working in one of the European countries, and is working on writing these programs for products that are designed to make children, the program has to be in such a way that it is addictive, that the child goes back again and again, okay? So, so this is being done by design, okay? And here is this human, highly technically qualified, one of the brilliant minds in our country, sitting in a therapy room halfway across. Sitting in a therapy room halfway across the world with me, sitting with this dilemma, because comes from a typical ordinary middle class Indian family. Sorry, okay. And the dilemma that he's sitting with is this what I studied for all these years? All those competitive exams that I wrote, the CAT, MAT, GAT, whatever else that people write to get into IITs and all the premier institutes. All those years that I put in my education, and here I am. I left my family behind, okay? I came to this country, I'm here abroad, I'm earning good money. Left my family, left my country, and what am I doing? Is this the and so then the question is this the legacy that you want to leave behind? Is this your purpose really in life? And as I was sharing with Dr. then, the responsibility then for the therapist, okay? So it's not the technology in itself, or the AI in itself. Of course, these are phenomenally useful things. But for us as humans, to actually remember that we also have the technology up here, to use that first, right? And to understand, and in fact, one of the goals of his research work is to also understand and study and program how these programs would rewire the neural circuitry in the brain, okay? That's part of his research. And here is this human sitting with this dilemma. So then what is my responsibility? And this is where then all that you have learned from teachers, I go back to my teachers who, when I was 17 and 18 and 19, who helped us navigate those difficult questions of ethics, okay? Who taught us right from wrong, who taught us to do the right thing even if it was inconvenient, even if it was difficult, even if you knew you were going to be blasted for it, fired for it, okay? And then you're sitting there along with your training and saying, yes, I will listen. I will do active listening. I will also be the mirror that will reflect. But I will also be your conscience. Because at this point in time, that is something that you're struggling with. Okay. So then, can I ask those non-directive questions and say, so tell me, what do you think about what is the legacy you want to leave in the world? And that is the question I hope will disturb him enough to say, oh my God, what am I doing? Because yes, I want to be non-judgmental. But I also, there is a difference between non-judgmental and using your sense of discretion. And that is what makes us human. That is something that AI cannot do. That is our job, that is our role, that is our work as human beings, right? To use technology where it helps us, and yes, it makes us incredibly efficient. It makes us do things faster and much better and crisper in many ways, you know, we summarize things much better than, but then the beauty that is in flawed, limited human beings and the wisdom that also is there within us. To hold that in that space of the therapy room, I think to me that is my job. That is my job as a therapist. And that is a job which no AI can do. And I say that with a sense of, you know, almost bordering on arrogance. I say it with quite pride because it's something that we've earned. We've learned how to do as human beings. And AI has a long way to go to learn that from us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwini.
Just two quick, you know, the thoughts. I know we are running short of time. You know, when Dr. Kalpana's mic didn't work, you know, and I gave, and then she gave me back, that made me think about, you know, there is this skill in counseling called the skill of immediacy. A client might shed a tear, and AI, at least right now, cannot push that tissue box, you know. That's the skill of the immediacy. And what is the beauty of the skill of immediacy? And that's what in any relationship brings in that therapeutic value is the gift or the experience of human presence. I think that's the only thing that we can say will be our unique contribution to the world. I remember one of the first questions that was asked is about the palliative care. As long as the cognitive faculties of a human is working, AI can definitely give information, provided the human has the emotional, you know, the stability to put it to practice. But the moment that is lacking, I think somewhere to enhance the motivation of a fellow human, to give that hope, I think somewhere that skill of immediacy is needed, and that a human presence is much more capable of providing at this point in time. I think both of us are being modest in terms of telling at this point in time, because in 1 year what has happened, we can't predict, maybe even this is quite possible, but at this point in time, when this panel discussion is happening, that seems to be our unique, you know, skill as humans, immediacy skills.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwini. Moving on to the last question for this discussion, if you have to give you have to give 3 advice to the students of psychology to be future ready, what would they be?
3, is it? When you put a number on it, that's when, you know, our points need to get way too concrete. I think first, we're talking about mental health professionals. I think we need to build the skill of entrepreneurship. You know, apart from a handful of companies today which are working in the domain of mental health, most of the founders are coming from non-mental health field. See, the country, the global opportunities will allow anybody to be a mental health entrepreneur. I mean, there is a beauty in it. But the not so beautiful side of it is the mental health professionals not using the opportunity to be mental health, you know, entrepreneurs. Recently I had this person, you know, asking me, you know, the difference between psychiatrist and counseling psychologist. And when I try to explain, the person said, no, madam, it does not matter. And when I look at the the income sheet of that company, astonished, you know. So when founders don't come from the mental health background, you know, the real work cannot happen. Superficial work will happen. So first point, mental health professionals, let's also put on the entrepreneurial hat. I think the world needs it. Now, second, the suggestion would be, let's approach the mental health work in a non-hierarchical manner. The history has created way too many layers in the hierarchy of, you know, in no particular order, because I don't even want to put it in a order. You know, we have psychiatric social workers, we have clinical psychologists. Intentionally, I'm juggling the words, but you know the implicit order that's there in the country. Psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, counseling psychologists do not approach the work of mental health in a hierarchical fashion. The moment you bring in a hierarchy that somebody in the mental health field is up there, somebody comes right below them, I think there is no way we can collaborate. There is no way we can collaborate. So approach the domain of mental health in a non-hierarchical manner. The work that we do definitely needs all types of work. A life skill trainer is as important as somebody who can prescribe medicine. You know, a palliative, the counselors also. So what we say, oh, it's only a 10-day certificate course. We say, that's okay. Let's not be judgmental, because somebody with a 10-day course is willing to go to a tier 3 city, is willing to go sit in a rural area, that maybe somebody with a PhD wants to be in a capital city of one particular state. So what I'm telling is, let there not be hierarchy. The world needs all sort of professionals wanting to pitch in and do their, the bit to the mental health field. And the third thing, something that at least I have learned through not so pleasant experiences, you want to be future ready, invest in your self-care in the present. As simple as your sleep, as simple as are you exercising right now. So 3 things: entrepreneurial hat, non-hierarchical approach to working in the mental health field, and also collaborative approach. And third, if you read research articles, the mental health of mental health professionals is not all that shining in the world. Okay? The mental health of mental health professionals, as per certain studies, needs to be, our clients should never look at those studies. So let's also prioritize our mental health and focus on your self-care. I think that's the only thing that we will ensure we are future ready, and that we have careers that are sustainable. Otherwise, we burn out, then we quit. Yeah? Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana.
I would probably go back to something that I said earlier, which is that, never stop learning, right? Because at 18 and 20, this is the world that you're seeing. At 30, it will be a different world. At 40, it will be a different world. And to stay with saying, oh, I got my degree or I got my PhD and therefore I know all there is to know, I think that is a huge red flag as a therapist. So I would start by saying, never stop learning. 2, I would say, don't be afraid to ask for help, because this is also something that I see a lot in the mental health profession. We're all out there, all of us are, we are in this helping profession, we want to go around saving souls. Save yours first. Ask for help, ask where you're struggling. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to say that, I need rest. It's okay to say that, no, I don't think I can see, I can do 4 sessions in a day. It's fine. Because being honest to yourself is more important. So ask for that help. Seek supervision, professional supervision. Okay. At every stage of your career, doesn't stop with you getting a degree and going out. At every stage, to this day, I go for personal therapy, seek supervision. Because each of us need it. When you're sitting and witnessing pain and suffering of other human beings, you need to take care of your own as well, right? And 3, I would say, question your privilege. Go out there in community. Try and understand lives that are different from you, that don't share the privileges that you do. You know? I would, there's a very beautiful, Nida Fazli ki hai. I don't know, I will translate if I possibly can, which says, धूप में निकलो, घटाओं में नहा कर देखो, जिंदगी क्या है, किताबों को हटा कर देखो. So there is that someone who's probably Arunima आप हिंदी में ना there are some things that are very difficult to translate in English, and which is why I also said that thing about when Jia asked that there's a certain beauty and an essence and a meaning to things when they are said in languages that we think and feel and live. Okay? English is the language that is taught to us. We are taught to think in it. But we feel with something else, with other languages. Okay. So that's a thought I would like to leave you with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwini, Dr. Kalpana. I think you have put in perspective, especially for our students, that what importance their degree holds and what importance they hold in society to make it a better place, and also how training in psychology and how that training is important, how that is significant in knowing and understanding the the basic principles of being a human, right? And also thank you for showing us the other aspect of psychology as to, like I initially started, in the session saying that how we think that it's very structured, and these are only some of the fields that we know, that most of the people know in psychology. But thank you for bringing into perspective, to all of us that there is something beyond the structure as well. There is something beyond the thought of psychology profession as such, and how students especially can engage in other career pathways as well. Thank you so much. We will now open for questions.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. I think everyone, at least since we've joined, we've heard the phrase unconditional positive regard. But I wanted to ask, how is it, how are we trained for it? I don't think, could you please elaborate on that? Are you given phrases, or are you simulations, or if the patient says X, you have to say Y? Could you please elaborate on that? Thanks.
See, rather than looking at it as something at the skill level, your name, please? Nava. Yeah, such an interesting name. Nava, instead of looking at unconditional positive regard as something that you do in terms of skills, I think our first level of, I wouldn't say training, but training through reflection maybe, should be that attitudinal shift that we bring. For example, something that I have struggled with when I began working with, let's say, families, where somebody would say, I'll kill my wife, who are you to ask? How do you provide unconditional positive regard to this person who takes pride in having the power to kill the wife and saying, I have the rights to do? How do you show? See, the way I have understood unconditional positive regard is, I make an attempt to understand you, while I clearly reserve the right to not agree with your perspective. So to empathize mean, I make a genuine attempt to understand your perspective. Where is that pride coming from that I have the rights to kill? I want to understand the ecological contributors of that particular perspective of this person. So two things. One, when I say somebody, I understand you, I clearly hold the distinction that I'm making an attempt to understand you while reserving the rights to not agree with your perspective. That's one. Now, secondly, what is this unconditional positive the regard? You know, that regard, that word regard, no, if you actually look at the regional languages, I remember once really trying hard, what is that regional equivalent? And in Kannada it is Sharattu Rahita Gaurava. Sharattu Rahita Gaurava is, I'm going to respect you without any condition. And what's that condition? If that person is somebody doing social service, that condition is met, that hey, you're respectable because you're doing good work. But here the person is telling, I have abused my daughter, I'm willing to. But what are we respecting? What we are respecting unconditionally is the potential of the person to change despite what their past is, despite what their present is. And when that settled in my heart, that's when I was able to continue to work with perpetrators also. But till this understanding emerged, I had learned the 3 core conditions of Rogerian work: empathy, unconditional positive regard, genuineness. But this unconditional positive regard of how could I be respecting this person who says, you know, I'm really mellowing down the examples and I'm sharing, you know, fathers telling, yes, daughters, abuse ho gaya, yen madakagate, I've abused. So 2 things, I make an attempt, genuine attempt to understand your perspective while reserving the right to not agree with you. Secondly, your actions are condemnable, no doubt about it, sometimes with certain clients. However, when I look at that human's potential to change for better in the future, irrespective of what their past and the present is, I think that respect is equally reserved for that person. Whoever I am, I can change. And as therapists, we facilitate that process of change. This has eased my journey. Yeah.
Ma'am, my name is Vishnupriya over here. I am a 6th semester BA psychology student, and first of all, I would like to begin by saying like a huge thank you for talking about the things that you have and for bringing in these perspectives. And as someone who's been wanting to do the work that you are doing right now, as someone who wants to work with the populations that you're working with right now, as a bachelor student or as someone who's going into their master's program, what are the first few steps that we can take? How can we access the community as students? And in terms of institutions or internships or the books that we read, how can we sort of get where you are right now is what I wanted to ask.
Vishnupriya, right? Okay, so few of the things, few of the ways in which you could explore, actually you've answered yourself. One is typically any school of psychology or social work or any of the associated mental health disciplines usually will have an outreach program of some kind within your department itself, within the school of your school or department. So that could be one starting point for you to explore. Internships are another. Also, I see these are more formalized, and what these allow you is there's a certain safety net, for you, because you will have someone who's going to mentor you, someone who will supervise you. Typically, you won't be alone. You'll have at least 2-3 other people. You'll be a team. And these are all things which at this phase, if you're in your 2nd semester, 3rd semester, undergrad, these are things that I feel facilitate learning, right? So these are ways in which you can explore. Also, I think a lot of NGOs offer volunteering opportunities, right? So, and see, some of them may, put it up on their websites. If alternatively, you could explore the kind of organizations that you would like to be part of and write to them or call them up and say, hey, I think you're doing exciting work, you're doing interesting work. How can I get associated with you? Is there something that I could do with you, right? And very often, a lot of NGOs are, happy to mentor young students who show that kind of, another way, which is, again, which will require a little more courage, is be part of social movements, okay, in your own city, in your own neighborhoods. Go for that protest and understand all sides. Dr. Ashwini was saying. Go with that questioning mind and say, what is my stand on the issue? What do I think about this? What is this person saying and what is that person saying? What is the protest for? And and then you learn to begin to think for yourself. Okay? Because opinion is easy. Opinion is a lazy, very, very lazy way to be. It's you watch a reel and you press that click and you do the armchair activism. Is very easy to do. But actually get out in the sun, go sit. Find out who are those children's organizations, which are the women's organizations that actually work with violence. What kind of, attend a meeting, just sit as an observer. See what you can learn, right? Participate. And this is something that, especially I think as today as we sit here, there are elections happening in multiple states in the country, right? I'm hoping everyone in this room is above 18 years of age. So if you want to live in a democracy, see how it works. Go beyond electoral democracy. Find out who are the neighbors, who are the people who live in your neighborhood, right? Engage. That's all I would say.
I'll just add one, the line, ma'am, with your permission. Vishnupriya, I remember I was in 10th standard, exams were over, and that's when, your parents are like, read something extra. There was this one line I read in one of those self-help books. This is like some 25 years ago. There was this one line, and that has stayed with me, which is, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. I remember reading that, and one experience of how it shaped my journey. I read that line, okay? And suddenly I'm like, oh my God, my network is my net worth, and I have my 12 classmates, and that's all my network is. And I remember there was this Tata Indicom, I don't think your generation would have seen those landlines. Recently got, and I asked my mother, can I make a call to some numbers? And she said, go call. I remember I was 16 years old. I picked up one number from the newspaper because in that newspaper said there is this organization called Vimochna. And that Vimochna was doing some protest on cylinder bursts in the city. I read that and I'm like, one number was there. My mother permitted me to call that number. I called and I said, I'm a 10th standard, the student, I have my holidays and I had learned the word internship. I said, can I do internship with your organization? And I remember the lady's voice because I interact with her today on a daily basis. She said, you're way too young. You'll come and sit with me in the police station, is it? You listen to your parents and read some books, and she kept the phone. Yeah? That organization, that was my experience with Vimochna at the age of 16. And then I thought, am I ready to sit in the police station to fight for the rights of women? At that point in time, the thought of police station, 15 years later, once I had my degree and I was, teaching at a college, Conspiracy of the World, that founder of the organization became my student, in that counseling course. And I remember that voice and I told her, I can take her name, Donna Fernandez. And I asked, Donna, do you remember I had called you and this was a line? She said, this is exactly what I would tell interns, And then today, many years later, Vimochna was one chapter in her life. Today, I and Donna, along with few other people, have started an organization together called Aveksha, which is working on the rights of women. When I look at that 16-year-old, had I not learned that line, that your network is your net worth, I would not have randomly picked that 080 number and called Vimochna. And it wouldn't have stayed at the back of my mind that, hey, women's rights, not women's, marginalized communities' rights contributes to mental health, and that matters to me, would not have been a perspective at the back of my mind. So you never really know network. You don't know what connections lead to which path.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana, Dr. Ashwini, for that enriching panel discussion. This is a time for you to increase your net worth by networking with our professionals. So thank you so much.
When I say network, I'm so sorry. For this, I need the mic. Yeah, when I say, When I say net worth, not just financial net worth, in terms of net worth of your experiences, also financial literacy, connections is your net worth. Don't please mistake that network for net worth economically alone, but cumulative experience in life is what I meant. Sorry, I thought not that should quote.
Hello. That was truly a wonderful session, shining light on how theory and training really translate into practice, and how that picture is also shifting with the paradigm, and especially that we need to take care of ourselves to take care of others. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini and Dr. Kalpana, for sharing your experiences and preparing us to remain flexible and open-minded throughout our careers. And thank you, Dr. Shriya, for gracefully moderating the session. I request Dr. Arunima to felicitate the guests. Our final interaction for today is with Dr. Vinish and Dr. Manavi Pathak, moderated by Dr. Maria Celine Lia. Dr. Vinish US is a behavioral scientist and co-founder of First Principle Labs, and also serves as founder and CEO of Elegant V Consults Designs. He began his career as a software engineer, followed by an MBA and an MS and a PhD in behavioral sciences. As someone who has spent over a decade exploring the intersection of technology, design, and behavioral science, he's an excellent resource person to learn from. Dr. Manavi Pathak is a leadership development and L&D strategist, currently serving as head of learning and organizational development at Samsung R&D Institute, India. After completing her MPhil from NIMHANS and PhD in organizational behavior from XLRI, she has been working in the domains of talent management, development, and learning. She has also served as a visiting faculty at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Welcome, ma'am and sir. Dr. Maria is an assistant professor, senior scale at DLHS. She holds an MPhil and PhD in psychology from Christ University, Bengaluru. A behavioral scientist, educator, and mental health professional, she brings 13 years of interdisciplinary experience spanning mental health services, education, behavioral science, organizational leadership, and has previously worked in roles such as managing director at JCO Tools, regional head of corporate wellness, or Cognizant, and corporate wellness. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think that was an amazing session that we just had. And since the theme is career pathways, you'll feel that some of the questions are repeated. So I request you to bear with us. And at the same time, let me assure you, it is going to be very different in terms of the answers, because the panel we have with us here come from backgrounds that is so versatile that I'm hoping to learn from them. Can we start? All right. So I think the whole conversation has been about how we are looking at moving from the illness model to the wellness model. And the previous panel has highlighted that very well. I would like to focus on, reminiscing a little and taking you back to the beginnings. So my first question to the both of you, what drew you to psychology? And most importantly, was there a specific moment, an incident, or an experience that pushed you towards a non-traditional route or a career direction in psychology?
So good afternoon, everyone, and really happy to be here. As meeting all these young, enthusiastic, learners, it's extremely, rejuvenating, and it's very good that we are talking about times which we usually don't reflect and think about. So so your question was, how did I get into psychology? And I have been into humanities from the beginning. I was a good student, but I was never drawn into science, and my parents that way were very understanding, so they wanted me to do whatever you want. So I took up psychology, and those days, if you see, I'm talking about many years back, psychology was not a very popular option, and people would not know. In fact, my dad asked me that, what will you do with psychology? I said, I don't know. At that time it was, the IAS, UPSC exam. So I said, okay, I'll do UPSC, but that was there. But when I joined college, I really started enjoying. And in fact, those days, it was not of this corporate thing that I had ever thought about. But my teachers, because I was a good student, they always used to tell me that you should go in for higher studies in psychology. And I enjoyed studying psychology. That's how I did my MPhil and then my PhD. So that was the thing. But I think it's a very fulfilling. I can't think about doing any other subject. And it was, just, I think, guidance and support by people. That's how I got in here. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. My journey has been a little different. And I started, you would have heard my introduction. I started as a software engineer. And, I used to code, not like today, where you can get the machine do all the coding for you. So I used to write all the hard code. And there was some very interesting observation when I started working with people, meaning I had a team and I started interacting with people. I write code, I run it today, I run it tomorrow, I run it 10 years later, I get the same response. But I see Maria in the morning. I don't know how Maria will be in the evening. And yeah, people are different. And that was a revelation. That would be my first point. Second point, I and my partner, we are blessed with a daughter. And we both are software engineers. And I think in a 5th standard or 6th standard, my daughter made a decision that she's not going to be an engineer. She joined Christ for a psychology, this thing, and I think that was when we decided that we will go to the psychology domain as well. And we ended up doing a master's and the PhD.
Thank you for your responses. I think that definitely gives me perspective to ask more questions in this area and your life journeys. And so I think following on that, you've come into psychology and there's a lot of work that both of you have been doing in the field and for the field, development of, your own innovative methodologies and strategies. But when you look back, to your time as a student of psychology, what are some of the core concepts that have stuck with you? And if you could maybe, remember a paper that you felt was very relevant to the kind of work you're doing today.
I think, everything that we studied. I did my bachelor's and master's in Delhi University, and Delhi University has, I would say, one of the best psychology, electives that they offer, and it was very, very deep. And one of the things that I would say, which I realized later, that time when you're a student, you don't realize because you feel that, sab kuch padna hai, everything you have to study. But I think that one of the things which is valued in the industry and which, answering to your question, is the psychometrics, the understanding of psychometric testing and the knowledge of, psychometrics, personality or cognitive testing. That actually, gives you a kind of a skill or an expertise which people in organizations who don't come from psychology background, they don't have. Okay, so that is very, very much valued. And in any company that I have worked, they see me like an expert SME in the field of psychometric testing. So whether it comes to interpreting reports or, giving some kind of a suggestion, all that. So I think this is one paper which definitely has given me that value add, which I am able to do. Otherwise, if you see, there are a lot of subjects. I'll just give you an example that clinical psychology, if you see, is something, of course, when you talk about clinical psychology, we talk about dysfunctional behaviors. But a lot of it is being discussed in the corporate setup now when you talk about senior leadership derailment, derailers, negative behaviors. All that is because if you see these startups, there was a very good article some time back I was reading about some startup founder, and most of these startup founders, if you see, they are very, very good cognitively. They are very intelligent. There are some dropouts of Harvard dropout, IIT dropouts. So all these are, they are very, very good, but behaviorally, they need help. So there was a very good article by one of the coaches who had written that, these startup guys, they need help in terms of coaching. Okay, so what I see that, these days to understand of that negative or the dysfunctional side of personality is also very important. Because when you talk about any kind of, in my previous panelists talked about interventions and, the prevention and the, post-intervention, those things are very, very important. Even in a organizational setup, where when you hire, especially when you do senior leadership hiring, the stakes are very, very high. You are hiring somebody, you pay them, very big salary, and you want them to succeed. And what is it? See, personality, we all know it cannot be changed, but what is it that we can do to help people? So the understanding of personality also becomes. So the two things that which I can give you is the psychometric testing and understanding of personality. That is very, very useful in that is a big value add that I can give. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a slightly different stance here. So let me tell you a story. So we recently, about a year back, we started working with a theme park. You know the theme park, the Wanderlas. So we have been recruited, or we have been onboarded there for improvising on their process. So we do a lot of process optimization. So we have been hired to improve the process. So we started working with the organization, and after 2-3 weeks, we realized that the organization doesn't have any process. Now, but then there is process. So being a little curious, I kind of, along with my team, dug a little deeper, and then we realized that people in the organization don't understand their roles. So that was the next level of revelation. we were again curious, we dug deeper, and then we realized that there is no proper hierarchy in the organization. So what we started and where we entered, we started with process optimization, we ended with not knowing the hierarchy. We went a little deeper. And that is when we realized that in that organization there were 3 people supposed to be not very clear who is at the helm or who is actual decision maker. And what we realized is there was, I mean, if there is a very critical decision to be made, there is a factor of fear. So they never took the decision. They always wanted the other person to take the decision. So long story short, two things. So if you really look at what I did, here was the iceberg model. I mean, so it is, I kind of looked at, so basically it is understanding the system. And so I would go back to evolutionary psychology. And the reason is when 2 or more people come together, in almost all the cases, I mean, this is my strong belief, there is an answer in evolutionary psychology. And I mean, you look at what's happening in through social media. What is social media doing? They have understood, I think you spoke about it. I mean, there is, Nirayal has written this book. Hook is the book that, I mean, if you have not read this, that would be a good book to read. Hook is the book that he wrote. But then maybe later he regretted and he wrote a follow-up book, and it is Indistractable. So the point is, if you go back and read, I mean, personally for me, evolutionary psychology has helped me a lot. And yeah, that would be my subject that I would always go back.
Thank you for your answers. I'm just, because of paucity of time, just quickly moving into, our everydays in the workplace. So we often see psychological concepts adapted in workplace. Sometimes thoughtfully, sometimes a little superficially. Maybe it becomes, just ticking a box. Oh, yes, we have a wellness team. Yes, we have employee assistance program and things like that. And even when it comes to strategies, business development, leadership training, sometimes it becomes a well thought out strategy, and sometimes it's just ticking a box. So what's one idea you've seen used well versus misunderstood? And have you personally translated theory into practice in this kind of a setting?
So, I think it's a very good question, and something that I can relate to. There is, everybody's talking about AI, and AI, in my organization, AI has been in the business strategy of the business leaders. You have to use AI. You have to do something with AI this year. You might have read a news article that Accenture has said for promotions, you have to use AI, otherwise you're out. So, there is a lot of fear and FOMO which is happening. And what is unfortunate is that instead of creating that curiosity, there is that FOMO. And there's a difference between FOMO and curiosity. What is the difference? FOMO is a term coined by your generation. So I'd like to ask, what is the difference between curiosity and FOMO? Anyone? Thank you. Your name? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So very well said. FOMO is actually, if you see, comes from the space of insecurity, fear, and curiosity is from the genuine interest to learn something. So what is happening is, AI being there, the fear is more than the the interest of knowing it, and because organizations have kept these targets that you have to use, so that is, this is the basically this is the scenario. What is happening is, and I work with a Korean company, Samsung which is a very, very R&D, heavy, technical heavy. There's very little psychology, unfortunately, which happens. I wish. And we have a big learning and development center in Korea, SWAN. But, because of, I think because of the lack of comfort with the English language, they are not able to use psychology fully. But what they have done is, in the recent years, they have got these young people who are good in English, and so it's improving. So what I'm trying to say is that with this scenario, what is happening is the concept of psychological safety is becoming very, very important. Okay, and in fact, we had a newsletter which came out, and what was very interesting, that this has to be shared with the senior leadership, and they said the learning and development team has to train them. So I saw it was psychological safety, good 10 slides on psychological safety. So I was like, wow, I'm happy. So what is happening? So in this kind of a scenario, the direct application of psychology is coming in here, that as leaders or as, colleagues or as managers, people need to give this psychological safety to their teams. So that is one thing that I see happening. This is something which is being used properly. And the second question is, what is used as a tick box? What I have seen is that wellness during COVID was taken up very, very seriously. Everybody was signing up for some or the other wellness program. Now, and the fear was that once the COVID is over, this will all go out of the window, and that is what has happened. So this is one thing which was tick in the box. So two examples that I can share with you. Yeah.
Let me take it over from psychological safety, and I want to bring again from a slightly different angle here. So we do work with a lot of organizations, and one of the important things that we do at organizations is assess how psychologically safe the organization is. And let me ask you, Maria, you would have been in a meeting where you would have spoken your opinion, and you would also be in another meeting where you did have lots of points, but then you kept silent. Now the question is, it is the same you, what changed?
Well, I think it's the people.
Yeah, so basically we feeling safe about our colleagues, the people around us, feeling that we can express ourselves. And one interesting thing that I have done, I've seen for most of the psychological safety assessment is the organizations, the teams where psychological safety is at the lowest, I get the highest score. And where psychological safety is good or very good, I usually get a medium score. And this is very interesting. I've done it in multiple organizations, and now that I know this pattern, if I get a high number, I know I have to go back. It's not that it's not safe. I have to go back and look at people. So if the psychological safety score is high, and you have a 10-member team meeting, and if 2 people only are speaking, then I know there is a problem. So I see that most of the organization, they have misunderstood psychological safety. And this is one of the key components. Google has conducted this study, and the topmost item that they have identified as the key aspect for an organization or a team to perform is psychological safety. And like Manvi rightly pointed out, psychological safety is key, but there is a huge misunderstanding in what psychological safety is. And the data is also a little skewed. So unless otherwise we look at the data in the right way, and for me it was a revelation, and and it aligns with Amy Edmonds' study as well. I mean, when she studied hospitals, and she found that psychologically safe hospitals where the surgeons were supportive, the nurses were more open to talk about problems. Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this up. What is not psychological safety is also very important. Because as you said that, people misunderstand psychological. So there was a very interesting HBR article. So in my organization, when we did this workshop, we shared it with what is not psychological safety. So that's also important to understand that what is not. See, the problem with any kind of with these behaviors, and there are a lot of, self-proclaimed psychologists, as it was brought in the previous session, that there are people who are not from this field who claim to be experts. So very important to understand and spread the word that what it is not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both of you for giving us these perspectives. I think this is something that we can extend into a larger dialogue, in our classrooms and in our other sessions. Quickly moving on to, give a perspective to our students who want to pursue, non-traditional career pathways in psychology. What does a typical day look like for you? And how much of psychology are you using there?
I did my PhD, and after that I have been in the industry. And so in my, I have worked in the HR consulting firms, and where I see the application is very, very deep and very high, because you have to talk about models, frameworks, because there is somebody out there who needs your services, and you explain, you bring out those through psychological concept, and you see how all that is going to make an impact. So I see that, very high in HR consulting. My current role in the last couple of years has been more of the COE role, that is Center for Excellence, and mostly I have been in the talent development and leadership development field. So here it is use of psychological concepts to curate programs, which is going to help in, some kind of upskilling or leadership development which the organization wants to do. So I see that there is quite deep. But what I want to tell you is that, be it any organization, what is important is the discipline of working. I feel that that is something that I always, I was hiring somebody for my team, and, the TA team asked me, what do you want? MBA, HR, MA psychology. I was like, that's okay. I can give you 2-3 options. I said, 2-3 things that I want is attention to detail, okay, and being able to stretch, okay, and that learning agility. The person should be ready to learn. That's very important for junior level jobs. Very, very important. You will be expected, even if you don't know. See, today you might join an organization which is using AI. You'll say, "Arey, college mein to padha hi nahi AI." That's okay. That's okay. See, college is going to teach you. There's a syllabus which has been curated by your teachers, and they're teaching you. But the expectation is that you should be learning, and you should be ready to learn whatever comes. Because, in the kind of world that you guys are going to see, our generation was learn, earn, and retire. Okay? We used to learn, earn, and retire. That was our generation. Your generation is learn, unlearn, relearn, and this is the way it is going to go. So it is really going to be very, very difficult. So learning agility is something that you should be curious. That is why I asked this question of difference between FOMO and curiosity. FOMO is a lot of people have, but we want curious people. You should be curious to learn what is there for you. And there is so much available. When I was a student, I sometimes wish I was a student at this time. Because there is so much to learn. We used to wait, certification, run for the certification. There was hardly anything that was available. But today, I think it's overwhelming also, I agree. Because there's so much that sometimes it can be overwhelming. You people have a lot of information overload also, that is also pitiable. That's also not nice. But I still feel that this is going to be very important. So, the behavioral skills of getting into the detail, not getting bored of doing the same things. When I join, in my learning and development function, when I hire, I tell them that, you people think that standing in the dais and taking a class, this is L&D. I said, no, this is not L&D. That glamorous part is just 20% of your job. 80% is the preparation and the back-end work. I said, forget about that. I have also learned it. I said, I wish I could do that. 100% of my job would be, sitting that sage in the stage kind of a thing. But that is not there. The work is going to be very boring, very monotonous, and you should be happy with that. That, somebody said that comfortable with discomfort. So that is very important. Be, happy. My daughter, she tells me, Mama, I'm bored. So I was like, you will remain bored most of the time. Be happy with that. Okay? Be comfortable with bored. So boredom, monotonous work is something that you should be happy doing. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Okay? And the thing is that another thing is people skills are going to be important, because a lot of these entry-level jobs are going to be done by AI. So work on your people skills. People have talked about people skills in the previous session, empathy, listening, unconditional positive regard, a lot of things. Please be comfortable. Work on those people skills. I see this generation, social skills are also going to be an area of development. So that is something that, you people should be working on. Okay? Thank you.
Since you asked about how my typical day would look like, I think it would be a good opportunity for also to talk about what could you all do. So let me look at what I did yesterday. So yesterday morning we had a meeting with a retail organization. Okay, so this retail is in Middle East, and they have a big plans to expand to 500 stores. Right now they are just 21 stores in the last 2 years, and in the next 10 years they want to expand to 500 stores. It is a little ambitious goal. So they came up with this problem that even if they have to add another 20 stores each year, they would need at least 20 into 200, it's like 4,000 people, and plus attrition is very high, 6,000 people. They need 6,000 people, and their onboarding time to get a good salesman, it takes them at least 6 months. So they came to us with a problem that how will you help us get all these people, because we are growing at a very fast pace and we need these people. So one direction that we are looking at is instead of 6 months, how do we onboard a person in 2 months? And that is where we use a lot of the educational psychology aspects. We are designing a curriculum. We are looking at the memory curve. I mean, lots of interesting ideas from educational psychology. My second meeting was something in continuation with Manvi said. There's an organization, it's a London-based organization, and they are moving to AI-first strategy, meaning in the next 6 months, they don't want anybody in the organization to code. And this is going to be a big change when I tell three important changes that I see. Is the first thing is the identity change. I mean, you are telling the people that you are no more a developer, something that was pride for them. You are no more a developer. So how would that identity change for them? How would their routines change for them? See, earlier you had a 1-year plan, and then you had quarterly goals, monthly. Now you're telling that you have to release in a day. You have to have your complete product in a week. And that is, again, the way that they are going to work is going to change. So lots of interesting thing, and we are working closely with this organization to tell them that, okay, the people part of it, the human capital part of it. How do we take them through that journey? The third example, the third meeting that I had was with the NGO. This NGO, they are doing some amazing work in the educational sector. They are actually working closely with students in the primary school to bridge the grade level competency gap. And we have been working with this organization for the last 2 years. So the point that I'm trying to tell is our organization work with different kind of organization, different kind of interventions. And these are all the possibilities for all these people in the room. I mean, I would say that morning you saw a list of jobs that you would be working in. I'm telling you that is just 5% of your jobs. Your jobs that you will be working in the next 5 years is not even defined. Nobody knows it. I mean, when I started First Principle Labs, I never thought I would be working in retail. Retail is something alien to me. I don't know that. So, I mean, this is how my day would look like.
Okay, so I think to just summarize, the possibilities are endless, right? Just quickly moving on to the next question, and I think we'll have to call it a day for paucity of time. So just asking out loud this question that all of us have. Both of you touched upon AI and AI usage. With the growing role of technology, we have the AI that has revolutionized a lot of things for us, big data, digital platforms. What should psychology students start paying attention to today so that, they are well informed in their careers tomorrow? Also, there is this lingering or looming apprehension or FOMO, fear, all of this associated with AI taking jobs. FOMO in terms of not fully being there and, being present, knowing how to use these tools, and fear of, will it replace me? Especially with a lot of services, offering online counselings with talks about how people are more comfortable, using an LLM for therapy because they can't afford real therapy. So what do you have to say? What should people really, students especially, be really focusing on for a career tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you for this question. And I think this is being discussed in most of the forums. And, the famous quote is that, AI will not take your job, but the person using AI will take your job. So that is the thing. See, for entry-level jobs, definitely in engineering and all, they say coding jobs are going to go. So it is definitely going to get impact. But it is very heartening to know that mental health or anything to do with helping profession, jobs are safe. Okay, this I have read, and please, if you have any fears, please Google and read up more about it, that any jobs which are related to helping or mental health professions. But what is important, again, like I told you, that you have to be very agile, you have to be open. There are more than, I heard somebody in my organization talking about that there are more than 500 AI-based apps which are being used across the world. And probably, we know few of them, ChatGPT and, the usual ones. Please start using more and more, explore, and see how you can use to simplify your work, and you can see how you want to add value. There is still a lot of work which can be done where human intervention is required. So I think that if you are stuck to what you have learned and not moved the needle beyond that, then you are in a danger zone. Otherwise, I think it's more, and because people are still studying, you're still in that, frame of mind of learning stuff. I think you guys will be able to do a good job, but, just be open to learning. That's what
I want to ask the crowd here, how many of you know that Google recently hired a philosopher? Anybody? How many of you know that Anthropic also hired a philosopher? So the question is, why do you think these high-tech companies are hiring not engineers like me, hiring philosophers? And that is the advantage of all the people in the room today. See, I've been closely looking at a new, it's not a theory. How many of you have heard about relational intelligence? Okay. So this is something after, I mean, your emotional intelligence. This is something being talked about, and Stanford University is doing some very interesting work on it. And if I'm not wrong, it's Isabel How. I mean, that's her name. Dr. Isabel is doing lots of interesting work in that space. And one important point that we need to realize is when two people come together, the shared intentionality that cannot be replicated by any of the machine today, and I'm pretty much confident that it is not going to happen in the next 10 years. Take it from me, 50 years. The shared intentionality is not something that is going to be replicated by machines. And you are people who is studying human beings, studying human behavior. And the future needs psychologists. I mean, I just gave you some of the examples of the work that we do. And I see a lot of such work coming in the future. And because you understand human behavior, because you understand, you can relate with how people behave, why people behave the way they do, I feel with a little bit of learning that is not excusable. I mean, you have to learn. I mean, all our panel members talked about it. You have to learn. You have to upgrade yourself. With a little bit of learning and having a understanding on the context, you're the best people to take on the future jobs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your answers. I think we can take one question from the audience. Arunama, ma'am, can we go ahead with that? One question from the audience. Okay.
Hello, panel. Good afternoon. I am Nal, and my question is to you. In today's market, we keep talking about the challenges that we face as students in the job market, and that is in 2026. So, what were some challenges that you faced in the job market when you were studying?
Thank you, Nalal, for that question. I think that's a very interesting question. I'm very curious to hear the answers.
So challenges that when we were students like you, see, of course, I would, you'll guess my age if I tell you. But when we were students, there were no placements and all. Okay, so it was like, you know, when ma'am said about, somebody said about entrepreneurial mindset. Shuru se entrepreneurial mindset we had. Okay, because there were no jobs, nobody to give you jobs. I have a special, you know, place in my heart for psychology students, because when I get a CV, I definitely give the person a chance to interview, because I know that, you know, these people, they work very hard, but the market is not, doesn't know them and doesn't understand. So, you know, when I was a student, very few companies, like Siemens was one company that used to hire. Now I see, you know, people like consulting firms like Aon, from Delhi University, they have a proper placement cell. In fact, I get calls that if you can come and hire. So it was very difficult there. So jobs hi nahi the. You had to, you know, that entrepreneurial minds, you had to go. And, you know, and both the previous panelists, they spoke about, they've had huge success stories, how they have done everything themselves. So I think that is very important now. Because jobs are not secure. You don't know, you know, the company hires you, they might say, we don't need you after 2 years. Then what do you do? So that entrepreneurial mindset is there.
Okay, I have a question to the room. Can you imagine the pain of a computer science and engineering graduate passing out in a recession year? I passed out in a recession year. And just imagine all the people. Your campus recruitment is not yet done. What's happening with your campus recruitment? So The point that I want to drive in is it's not easy. It was never easy. You think it is easy, it is never easy. You have to go through that process. And I'm pretty much confident that you'll be able to. You are equipped. And there are lots and lots of opportunities.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both of you, Vinish and Manvi, for sharing such inspiring journeys. I wish we could speak to you for a little longer, but then taking into consideration that we have to, wind up, I think it's my privilege to thank you and be here. From your motivations in psychology to the real world applications that you shared, the essential skills, bold visions for the field's future. I have nothing more to add, but thank you. You've shown our students that psychology thrives far beyond traditional paths, opening doors to organizations, retail, even technology, and meaningful impact. To my audience, all I want to say is take these stories as your roadmap, explore boldly, to quote Star Trek, don't hesitate to go where no man has gone before. Build your versatile skills and shape psychology's next chapter. Psychology holds value in any area with human interaction or even in interacting or creating machines that interact with humans. So there is no limit to you but your imagination. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. That was a great session. I think it offered the students a peek into corporate workplace and what psychologists can bring to it. Beyond the world is a clinic that is now rapidly beyond the clinic is a world that is now rapidly growing, and having an idea of what it entails is certainly helpful. Thank you, Dr. Maria, for the smooth conduction. I now request Ms. Vaishnavi to present the token of gratitude to the guests. Dr. Vinish. And Dr. Madhavi. Just one announcement. Those students from DLHS who haven't registered yet, please do so at the table outside. And also, if there are any parents or any students who have any doubts, you may also approach the table outside. With that, our time today comes to an end, but the path lies ahead in wait. I hope these conversations helped you nudge towards your ideas while still offering comfort in knowing that when the time is right, you know. Thank you for being here today. Have a nice lunch and a happy weekend.